Welcome, beautiful souls. I'm so happy you're here. Whether you stumbled upon this by chance or have been with me for a while, welcome to a space where emotions run deep. Love knows no limits and every story is told with heart. I am the instrument, but you're the magic that keeps it alive. So grab a cozy seat, open your heart, and get ready to experience stories that will move you, inspire you, and maybe even change you. The sky that morning was as gray as the ache in Elena's chest. Rain had threatened to fall all night, and now the clouds were heavy, swollen with the weight of a storm that matched her life. She tightened her arms around Maya, her 8-year-old daughter, as they sat on the worn mattress in the corner of their one-bedroom apartment. The final notice from the landlord lay crumpled on the floor, alongside the empty pill bottle she couldn't afford to refill. Maya coughed softly in her sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with delicate wheezes, and Elena's heart clenched at the sound. The child had inherited more than just her deep brown eyes. She'd inherited asthma, and with it, the crushing cost of medication, doctor's visits, and ER bills that never stopped coming. There was no money left, no food, no job, no home by nightfall. She'd tried everything, called every friend, knocked on every door, but people's patience ran thin when poverty lingered too long. Family, there was none. Her mother had died when Maya was just a baby, and her father had never been in the picture. Now as sunlight broke weakly through the cracked window, a knock came at the door, firm, purposeful. Elena didn't need to open it to know who it was. "Mama?" Maya stirred, rubbing her eyes. Elena gently smoothed her hand over her daughter's curly hair. "Shh, baby, I'm right here." The door opened before she could get there. A pair of suited figures stood in the hallway, social workers. Behind them, 2 uniformed officers. "Elena Carter?" the older woman asked gently. Elena nodded. She had no energy to fight, no words left to plead with. She just held her daughter tightly. "I'm afraid we have to take Maya into temporary custody," the woman said. "We've received reports of unsafe living conditions. No food, no power. No medical support, please." Elena's voice cracked. "I'm her mother. I'm doing my best. She's all I have." The woman sighed, but her tone remained firm. "We understand this is difficult, but Maya needs stable care. This isn't forever. If you can find employment and secure safe housing, the court may consider reinstatement." Eleanor fell to her knees as the officer gently tried to separate them. Maya began to cry. "No, please," Eleanor begged. "Wait. Let her take her hoodie. Please, it's cold and she gets sick easily. Please just let her have it." A younger officer bent down and picked up the tattered, oversized pink hoodie from the corner. He looked at the faded cartoon bear on the front, saw the way Maya reached for it and passed it to the girl. "She'll get a better one," the older officer said. But the younger one looked Elena in the eyes. "Get a job. Find a decent place to live. Then maybe we can help." Maya was led away in tears, the sleeves of her hoodie dragging on the floor. Elena watched paralyzed, her whole world walking down the stairs in government-issued sneakers. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stood there in silence, her hands balled into fists, as the echo of her daughter's sobs faded into the hallway. By evening, the apartment was empty. Her things had been tossed out with little care, donated or discarded. Her stomach twisted in knots, but she had no tears left. There was nothing but concrete beneath her feet now, and the bitter wind slicing through her worn-out coat. She walked the streets like a ghost, every light too bright, every sound too sharp. People passed by without noticing her, just another woman with tired eyes and broken shoes. It was then, on the corner of 7th and Pine, that she saw him, a man curled up on a piece of cardboard. No blanket, no pillow, just a threadbare hoodie over his chest. His face was partly hidden under shaggy hair and a patchy beard, but his eyes were open, watching the street, not expecting anything. A beggar, a nobody, just like her. Eleanor paused. Her first instinct was to keep walking. She had nothing left, not even dignity. But as she looked at him, something shifted in her chest. A quiet recognition, a shared pain. She stepped forward. "I don't have any money," she whispered, crouching beside him. "I don't even have a home." He didn't move, didn't speak. She reached into her bag and pulled out the pink hoodie. Her hands trembled as she smoothed it out. "This was my daughter's," she said softly. "They took her today, said I wasn't good enough to keep her. This hoodie is all I have left of her. but you look like you need something more than I do right now. She gently placed it under his head like a pillow, careful not to wake him, though he was already awake, watching through heavy lids. She'd want you to have it, Elena said, blinking back the sting in her eyes. She always wanted to help people. Then she stood, pulled her coat tighter around her body, and walked away, leaving behind the only thing she had to offer, and a piece of her soul with it. She didn't know he sat up slowly after she left. Didn't see the way he picked up the hoodie with shaking hands, held it to his chest, and closed his eyes like it was something sacred. Because to Liam it was. The woman hadn't known he was watching her long before today. That she'd passed him every evening on her way home from various jobs. That he'd noticed how she always carried her daughter in her arms when she was tired, how she skipped meals to feed the girl first, how she smiled even when it hurt. She hadn't known that the hoodie now cradling his head wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was an emblem of who she was, selfless, kind, beautiful even in despair. Liam Kensington, billionaire CEO turned incognito wanderer, had been searching for something real in a world that had given him everything but authenticity. And today a woman with nothing had given him everything. Hours later, Elena found herself behind a seafood restaurant near the docks, sifting through a garbage bag for edible scraps. Hunger wasn't new to her, but it was never easy. She found half a roll still wrapped in paper and sat on the crate to eat. As she took a bite, a shadow fell over her. She looked up, startled. It was him, the man from earlier. He had the hoodie wrapped around his neck like a scarf. "I told you. I don't have anything else to give," she said quietly. "I'm not here for anything," he replied, voice rough. "Just saw you here, and thought maybe I could sit." She nodded. He sat beside her on the crate. "I never got your name," he said. "Elena. I'm Liam." They sat in silence for a moment. "I used to have everything," Liam said, picking at a napkin in his hand. "Money, a business, a fiancé, friends. But when things got real, most of them disappeared." Elena nodded slowly. "Same happened to me, except I never had the money. Just a man who left the moment I told him I was pregnant." They exchanged tired smiles, one from privilege fallen, the other from poverty endured. For the first time in weeks, Elena didn't feel invisible. The wind picked up as evening deepened, curling around the corner of the alley, where Elena and Liam sat on opposite ends of the crate. The silence between them surprisingly comforting. Neither rushed to fill it. The city moved on loud and fast, but in this small pocket of stillness, time seemed to pause. Elena looked down at the half-eaten roll in her hand. It was dry, crust cracking beneath her fingers, but she still held it like it was gold. Hunger had a way of making even the simplest food sacred. She tore it in half and extended one piece toward Liam. "It's not much," she said softly, "but it's all I've got." He stared at it for a moment, then shook his head gently. "I think you need it more than I do." "You sure?" she asked. He nodded. Eleanor tucked the other half away in the paper wrapper and placed it beside her. "Funny how people with everything walked past me all day. You're the only one who stayed." "I don't think staying costs anything," Liam replied. "People just forget that sometimes." She glanced at him sideways. He looked tired, but not just the kind of tired that comes from sleeping on concrete. It was deeper, bone deep, soul deep. His clothes were worn, shoes mismatched, but his eyes were steady, clear. There was something about him she couldn't place. Something familiar. "How long have you been out here?" she asked. "A while. Family?" "They're around. Just not close. Friends? Had some. Most left when I stopped signing checks." Eleanor blinked. "Checks?" Liam caught himself and let out a small laugh, brushing his hair from his eyes. "I mean, when I stopped providing. Let's just say I used to have a different life." She raised an eyebrow but didn't press. She'd learned long ago that people revealed themselves when they were ready, and sometimes not at all. He looked at her now, really looked. "What about you? What happened?" She swallowed hard, then leaned back against the wall behind them. "Got pregnant at 19. He was sweet at first, told me we'd figure it out, but the second I told him I was keeping the baby, he disappeared, changed his number, blocked me on everything. I'm sorry." She shrugged. It was hard. But Maya, she's my little light. I never regretted having her. Even when I couldn't feed myself. Even when people looked at us like we were stray dogs. She made everything worth it. She sounds amazing, she is. She's got the biggest heart, always telling me not to give up. The kind of kid who offers her only snack to someone else even when she's hungry. Liam's throat tightened. She sounds a lot like her mom. Elena looked at him startled, then a faint, reluctant smile tugged at the corner of her lips. It had been a long time since someone said something kind to her, without pity, without judgment. It felt foreign, but nice. I lost her today, she said after a moment, her voice thin, as if the words themselves cut her open. They took her away because I couldn't keep a roof over her head, because I had to choose between her medicine and our rent. Liam looked away, jaw tense. That's not right. No, she whispered, but it's real. A gust of wind rustled trash bags near the dumpster. The city suddenly felt colder. Where are you sleeping tonight? Liam asked. Eleanor looked down. There's a shelter across town. They let women stay for 3 nights at a time. Then you have to rotate out. Tonight's my turn again. After that, I don't know. He nodded slowly. Mind if I walk with you? She studied him, trying to read his intentions, but all she saw was honesty. Tired, gentle honesty. Sure, she said. But it's a long walk. I've walked farther. The shelter sat in a quiet part of the city near a church. Its exterior was dull brick and flaking paint, but to Elena, it was sanctuary. Warmth. A place with a cot and hot tea, if nothing else. They arrived just before curfew. A volunteer unlocked the door and waved her in. Hey, Elena, the woman said kindly. Bed 9's open. You're lucky. Elena turned to Liam. This is where I crash. They won't let men in. But there's another place a few blocks over that might have space. I'll find it. She hesitated before going in. Thanks for today. Just talking. It helped. Any time. She took a few steps inside, then turned back. You kept the hoodie? He nodded and tapped his chest. Safest thing I've got. Something flickered in her eyes, surprise, maybe even warmth. Then she disappeared into the shelter, the door clicking shut behind her. That night, Liam found a bench near the church and sat with the hoodie balled under his head. He stared up at the stars through gaps in the clouds. For a man who had once owned skyscrapers, jets and houses in 3 countries, this bench felt more meaningful than any of them. Because today someone had looked at him, not for what he had, but for who he was. And he had looked back and found someone worth standing in the rain for. The next morning, Elena woke early. Her hair was tangled, clothes wrinkled, but she pulled herself together and caught a bus to the social services office. She hadn't eaten, didn't have the fare, but she walked the final miles because her heart couldn't wait. She needed to see Maya, even from a distance. Inside the office, she braced herself for another rejection, another lecture. But the receptionist blinked at the screen, then looked up with a stunned expression. You're Elena Carter? Yes, she typed a few things. I don't know how this happened, but someone's paid for your daughter's full medical insurance, long-term, everything, appointments, medication, emergency care. Elena's breath caught. What? And this is even stranger. The judge signed off on a request for you to see Maya. No supervision required. Effective today, but I didn't apply to the court. The receptionist shrugged. I don't know who did. It's all here, stamped and approved. Elena could barely breathe. Can I see her? She's in the child care room down the hall. Elena didn't wait. She ran, feet pounding the tile, tears springing to her eyes. When she burst into the room, Maya was sitting on the floor playing with blocks. The second she looked up, she screamed, Mommy, and ran into her arms. Elena knelt down and held her so tight it hurt. But she didn't care. For the first time in weeks, her heart was full. Her arms weren't empty. Her world wasn't shattered, it was healing. On her way back to the shelter, she passed the same alley from the day before and saw Liam sitting there, sipping from a paper cup. She ran up to him, breathless. I saw her, she beamed. I held her. They let me. They said, someone paid for everything. Liam's eyes didn't change, but his lips curved. That's incredible. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out 2 crumpled bills. Here is $2. I'd saved it for Maya's lunch before they took her. I want you to have it. He took it gently, almost reverently. Oh, you don't have to. I want to, she interrupted. Today someone gave me hope. I want to do the same for you. They walked side by side toward the shelter, the sun slowly rising over the rooftops. Neither said much, but something had shifted. Not charity, not sympathy, just two broken people sharing a piece of joy neither of them had expected to find again. Sunlight filtered through the cracked window pane of the shelter, casting soft golden light over Elena's sleeping face, and for the first time in weeks, her expression wasn't one of tension or pain. There was peace, thin and fragile, but peace all the same. She stirred awake with the memory of Maya's voice echoing in her ears. Mommy, she hadn't dreamed it. It had been real. She'd held her baby, felt her heartbeat, seen her eyes sparkle like stars again. Someone, some stranger, had covered all her medical needs. Elena still couldn't explain it, but she wasn't about to question a miracle. As she slipped on her coat, she paused to tuck the $2 bill she no longer had into her pocket, out of habit. Instead, her hand brushed something else. A note, folded, worn at the edges. She didn't remember placing it there. Opening it carefully, she read, "To the woman who gave away everything she had left, thank you. Today you reminded me what it means to be human." No name, no signature. Eleanor's breath caught. Her eyes filled. Had it been Liam? She wasn't sure, but the thought filled her chest with something warm and steady. Later that day, she arrived early at the family center where Maya was staying. She waited anxiously outside, pacing the sidewalk like her feet couldn't bear to stay still. The wind tugged at her coat, but she barely noticed. When they finally let her in, Maya ran into her arms again, tighter this time. No fear, no confusion, just joy. "Mama, guess what?" Maya said excitedly, as they settled on the rug in the playroom. "I got my favorite cereal again, and I have new pajamas. And they said you can come see me every day now." "I know, baby," Elena whispered, smoothing her daughter's curls. "I missed you so much." Maya looked up at her, eyes big and full of innocence. "Are we going home?" Elena's heart twisted. "Not yet, sweet girl. But soon, I promise." Maya nodded solemnly and pulled her mother's hand to her chest. "It's okay, Mommy, I'll wait." "I know you're trying." Elena kissed her forehead, holding back tears. "I'm trying so hard." That afternoon, Elena walked the long road back to the shelter, her shoes flapping slightly with each step. The sun hung low in the sky, the city casting long shadows. Her stomach growled, but she didn't mind. Her soul was full. As she approached the alley near the restaurant, she spotted Liam sitting in his usual corner. The pink hoodie was still around his neck, now cleaner, carefully folded beneath him. He looked up and smiled as she came near. "You look different," he said. "I saw her again," she replied, breathless. "And they told me I can visit every day now. Someone paid for everything. I don't know who, but I just had to tell you." Liam stood slowly, brushing the dust off his jacket. "I'm glad. You deserve good things." She handed him a wrapped sandwich she'd saved from the shelter. "They gave me two. I thought of you." He took it gratefully. "You didn't have to." "I know, I wanted to." They sat on the curb together. For a while they ate in silence, sharing bites between stories. Elena told him about Maya's laugh and her love for drawing horses, about the time she tried to paint the walls with peanut butter. Liam chuckled. "She sounds like she has spirit." "She does, so much of it." He nodded. "Reminds me of someone else I know." Elena flushed lightly but looked away. "And what about you? Where do you sleep now?" "There's an old loading dock by the station. Not the safest, but it's dry. Do you ever think about trying to get back on your feet?" she asked gently. He looked up at her. "I think I already am." Her eyes softened. There was something changing between them. Neither said it, neither pushed it. But it was there, in the way they lingered in each other's presence, in the way their voices fell softer each time they spoke. As the sky turned a dusky pink, Liam stood. "Come on," he said. "Let me walk you to your shelter." Elena laughed. "You keep showing up for me. Maybe I like showing up for you." She didn't respond to that. But she didn't stop smiling either. The next few days blurred into a quiet rhythm. Elena woke each morning and visited Maya, who always greeted her with open arms and more energy than any one child should have. They drew pictures together, told stories, and made plans for the future. Every evening, Liam waited by the alley, sometimes with a cup of tea, sometimes with a joke, sometimes with just his steady presence. One night, as they sat on a milk crate watching the cars pass by, Liam reached into his coat and pulled out a small drawing. It was a horse drawn in crayon, sloppy and beautiful, with the name Maya scrawled at the top. "She gave it to me," he said, handing it to Elena. "Said I reminded her of a cowboy." Elena smiled so hard it hurt. That's her favorite thing to say when she likes someone. Liam tilted his head. "Does that mean you like me too?" Her smile faded, but only a little. "I do, I don't know if I'm ready. I'm not in a place where I can promise anything. My heart's still focused on getting her back." He nodded. "I understand. I just need you to know it's not because you're, well, poor or homeless. It's not that." Liam's gaze softened. "I never thought it was." She looked at him then, her eyes full of truth. "It's because I can't afford to lose again." That night, as she walked into the shelter, Elena looked back once. Liam was still there, sitting quietly, watching her go. He didn't chase. He just stayed exactly as she needed. The following day, something unexpected happened. As Elena walked past the restaurant, where she used to beg for scraps, she saw Liam not sitting outside but inside, behind the counter, wearing an apron, serving food. She stopped dead in her tracks, blinking. He looked up and caught her staring. Then he smiled, proud and almost sheepish. "You work here now?" she asked, walking up to the counter. "Got hired yesterday," he said. "Told them I knew how to clean, carry and cook." They took a chance. Elena's heart leapt. "Why?" she asked. His eyes met hers. "Because you inspired me." He handed her a warm plate of food. "Lunch on me." She sat down, touched beyond words. It wasn't the food. It was the gesture. The quiet, determined man doing everything to meet her where she was. She watched him as he worked. How he wiped the tables with care. How he greeted every customer with genuine respect. How he looked up at her every few minutes, as if making sure she was still there. And suddenly something cracked open inside her. Maybe she could love again. Not someday, but soon. Rain tapped gently on the tin roof of the shelter, as Elena stood by the window, staring out into the grey morning. She held a cup of lukewarm coffee in her hands, watching as city workers swept puddles into drains. Her thoughts drifted to Maya, her laughter, her big eyes, and the way she'd started asking if Liam could come visit too. Liam. His name alone now felt like a comfort she hadn't expected. He'd become a steady part of her every day. Sometimes he brought hot tea or fruit when she hadn't eaten. Sometimes he just listened. But always he was there. She still remembered how her heart had fluttered, watching him behind the restaurant counter, how he'd cleaned with purpose, worked with humility, and smiled at her like she was the most important thing he'd seen all day. He never pushed, never asked for anything, but she could feel it. The way his gaze lingered when she laughed, the way he walked a little slower when she was beside him, the way he remembered small things, her favorite type of tea, the way Maya liked her sandwiches cut diagonally, not straight. Elena hadn't let herself hope in a long time. But this was starting to feel real. That evening, Liam waited outside the shelter, like always. The rain had stopped, and he held a small bouquet of wildflowers in his hand, clearly picked from a city garden nearby. "For you," he said shyly, offering them as she approached. Elena hesitated, then took them slowly, fingers brushing his. "They're beautiful," she said softly. "No one's given me flowers in years." He shrugged, suddenly bashful. "Thought it might make you smile." It did. They walked quietly through the park near the shelter. The ground was damp, the air fresh. Children laughed on the playground. And for the first time in a long while, Elena didn't feel like she was on the outside of life looking in. "I wanted to ask you something," Liam said as they reached a bench. "Okay, would you maybe want to get dinner sometime? Like not shelter food. I could save up and—" She placed a hand gently on his arm. "You don't have to impress me." "Liam." He looked into her eyes, vulnerable and sincere. "I'm not trying to impress you. I just want to be with you, wherever that is." She smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "You know, I'm still focused on Maya. She's my everything." "I know, and I'm scared. I've loved before, and it almost destroyed me. I can't afford to fall apart again." Liam nodded slowly. "Then let me be the one thing in your life that doesn't fall apart." Elena's breath hitched. His words settled into the cracks of her heart, warm and steady. She didn't say yes that night, but she didn't say no either. Days passed and their bond only grew. Liam began helping at the shelter on his off days, fixing broken shelves, serving soup, mopping floors. Helena saw how the other women began to smile at him too, some even teasing her about her handsome handyman. At the family center, Maya's health improved daily. Her cheeks had regained color, her energy returned, and every time Elena visited, Maya asked the same thing. "Did you bring Mr. Liam?" Elena would laugh and say, "Not today, baby." Maybe soon. She hadn't introduced them formally. A part of her still clung to caution, but she couldn't deny the comfort Liam brought. He had made her feel something she'd almost forgotten, safe. One rainy afternoon, Eleanor arrived at the shelter, soaked and shivering. Her umbrella had snapped in the wind, her coat had ripped at the shoulder. She was exhausted, hungry, and the weight of everything felt heavier than usual. She found Liam waiting at their usual spot. Without a word he stood, took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "I'm fine," she mumbled, but her voice broke. He sat her down on the bench and knelt in front of her. "You don't have to be." And just like that the walls crumbled. Tears slipped down her cheeks, quiet, steady, years in the making. She cried not just for today, but for every night she'd been hungry, for every door slammed in her face, for every moment she'd held Maya's hand and pretended not to be afraid. Liam didn't say anything. He just held her. It was the first time in years someone had held her without expecting anything in return. Later, as the rain eased, she leaned back and looked at him. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. He met her gaze, eyes earnest. "Because I've been looking for something real my whole life, and I found it in you." Eleanor stared at him, stunned. Her heart raced. And without planning it, without thinking too hard, she leaned forward and kissed him, soft, unsure, but true. When she pulled away, Liam smiled, eyes closed. "Does that mean yes to dinner?" he whispered. She laughed, wiping her cheeks. Yes, the next week. Liam and Elena spent every free moment together. They talked about everything, books, music, their worst days, and the small things that kept them going. He told her about his love of photography and how he once dreamed of opening a gallery. She told him about the poems she wrote but never shared, the way she used to hum lullabies to Maya even when her own heart was breaking. Their first official date was simple, easy. Picnic in the park with food Liam had prepared himself. Maya's drawing was tucked in his pocket like a lucky charm. They ate on a faded blanket beneath a tree, laughing, teasing, leaning into each other like they'd always belonged. Helena looked at him then, really looked. There was something about Liam that still didn't add up. The way he spoke, his posture, his vocabulary. He was too polished to have been on the street long. But she didn't ask, not yet. Because the man sitting across from her, the man who had given her warmth, consistency and respect, was the man she was falling for. Not his past, not his status, him. That night, as they walked back to the shelter, Liam stopped at the corner where they'd first met, the spot where she'd left Maya's hoodie beneath his head. "I come here sometimes," he said, looking around, "just to remember what kindness feels like." Elena stood beside him, the memory vivid in her mind. "I didn't think anyone was watching me," she whispered. "I was," he took her hand. "I don't have much, Elena, but what I have I want to give to you and Maya, even if it's just this version of me." She looked at him with quiet eyes. "You're enough, Liam, you always have been." The air was warmer that morning. The first hints of spring danced on the breeze as sunlight kissed the tops of buildings. Elena stood outside the family center, watching Maya run through the playground with another little girl, her laughter ringing through the air like music. Liam stood beside her, quiet as always. "She looks happy," he said, his voice soft. "She is," Elena whispered. "She asks about you every day." He smiled, but it was different this time, tinged with something else. Hesitation, maybe even sadness. "What's wrong?" she asked, turning to face him. He didn't answer right away. His eyes were on Maya, but his mind was far away. "I want to show you something," he finally said. "Come with me." Eleanor hesitated, unsure, but nodded. "Let me tell the staff I'll be back." She kissed Maya's forehead, promised she'd be back soon, and followed Liam as he led her down a different road, past the familiar corners and shelter walls. They walked in silence for a while until the buildings began to change. Brick gave way to marble, rusted gates to polished iron. Then they turned onto a private drive. Elena stopped in her tracks. Before them stood a sprawling estate, tall white pillars, manicured lawns, a wrought iron fence with gold trim, the kind of place that belonged on magazine covers, not in her world. "What is this?" she asked. Liam turned to her, looking nervous like a man about to lose everything. "This is my home." Elena blinked. "Your home?" "My real home," he said quietly, "my real life." She stared at him, her body frozen, her heartbeat a deafening drum in her ears. "I haven't been honest with you," he continued. "My name is Liam Kensington. I'm the CEO of Tech. I've been on Forbes. I have offices in 5 cities. She took a step back. "No, Elena, you lied to me." "I didn't lie," he said gently. "I just didn't tell you everything. You pretended to be homeless. I was homeless by choice. I walked away from everything. Wealth, luxury, fake friendships, because I couldn't trust what was real anymore. I wanted to see the world without a name or a title. I wanted to meet someone who saw me, not my money." Tears welled in her eyes. "So what was I? An experiment?" "No, you were the moment I found what I was looking for." She shook her head, the betrayal slicing through her chest. "You watched me fall apart. You saw them take my daughter, and you still kept this from me." "I helped," he said, voice cracking. "I paid for her care. I filed the court appeal. I've been here beside you every step." She looked away, hurt blooming like fire. "You think money fixes everything?" "No," he whispered, "but love does. And I fell in love with you, long before you ever knew my name." Elena stood there, trembling, the weight of everything crashing down. "I need to go," she whispered. "Eleanor, please." She turned and walked away. That night, the city felt colder than it had in weeks. The warmth she'd built with Liam now felt like smoke, beautiful but impossible to hold. She sat on the shelter cot, staring at the wildflowers he'd given her days before, now dried and crumbling at the edges. Why hadn't he just told her? Why had he let her believe they were equals in struggle, when his reality was far beyond hers? She tried to sleep, but memories kept her awake. The way he'd listened, the way he'd sat with her in silence, the way he'd kissed her hand when words failed. Was that man real or just a character he played? 2 days passed. Eleanor avoided the alley where they used to sit. She didn't go to the restaurant. She only visited Maya, and then went straight back to the shelter. But on the 3rd morning, something strange happened. When she arrived at the family center, a volunteer handed her a package. "It was left here for you, no name." Inside, neatly folded, was Maya's old hoodie, now clean, repaired and soft as new. A note was tucked inside. "This was never about the hoodie or the money. It was always about you, and I'm sorry if I broke your trust trying to protect it, but if you ever wonder whether it was real, it was, all of it." Beneath the letter, a printed photo. It was the drawing Maya had given him, the crayon horse framed. Eleanor sat down on the curb, the note in her hands, the wind brushing through her hair. It had been real, all of it. She closed her eyes, breathed deep, and felt something inside her finally settle. That evening, she took Maya's hand and walked toward the estate. They arrived just as the sun was setting. The gates were open. Liam stood at the front steps waiting, wearing the same jacket he'd had on that rainy day in the alley. Elena didn't speak right away. Maya was the first to run forward. "Mr. Liam," she shouted, throwing her arms around him. He caught her, tears in his eyes. "Hi, little one." Elena stepped forward, her voice steady but full of emotion. "I didn't come for the house or the name or the money. I know, I came because, even though you didn't tell me the truth about who you were, you showed me something else. You showed up when no one else did. You saw me when no one else looked. And for once in my life, I didn't feel alone." Liam stepped closer. "I would give it all up again just to hear you say that." "You don't have to give anything up," she whispered. "Just let me be part of it. As myself, as your equal." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple ring. No diamonds, no gold, just a band made of silver. "I found this at a market the day after you gave me Maya's hoodie." He said, "I didn't know why I bought it then, but now I do." He knelt, trembling. "Elena Carter, will you be the home I never had? Will you let me love you and Maya with everything I have?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, "but only if you promise to never hide from me again." Never, he said. He slipped the ring onto her finger. Maya clapped and squealed, dancing in circles on the driveway. And as the sun disappeared behind the city skyline, Eleanor leaned into Liam's arms, finally whole, finally safe, finally loved. A few months later, Helena walked through the front doors of the same social services office where they'd taken Maya from her. But this time she wore a simple white dress, a wedding band on her hand, and her daughter beside her. The judge signed the final custody documents. Full parental rights restored, he said with a smile. Helena held Maya's hand tight. Outside, Liam was waiting. She ran into his arms with their daughter between them. No longer afraid, no longer broken, because love had found them, not in wealth or status or appearances, but in kindness, in sacrifice, and in the gift of a single hoodie. And that had been more than enough. To my amazing viewers, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for every view, every comment, every share, and every moment you've spent with my stories. Your support is the reason I keep creating these emotional journeys and unforgettable characters. Every time you press play, you're not just watching. You're becoming part of something deeply human and real. Your love, encouragement, and feedback fuel my passion. I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful you're on this journey with me. Here's to more stories that touch hearts and inspire souls. Vintage Mike Tales.